Shalom Chavarim. I was just going over Parsha Vayishlach this morning, and there's so many gems in this Parsha. I just wanted to share some things I came across. This isn't really planned or orchestrated properly, but I think there's some great things here. And so, in this Parsha it talks about Esav, and he's going to encounter his brother Yaakov, or Yaakov is going to encounter his brother Esav for the first time in many years, as before Yaakov's mother Rivka told Yaakov to run and hide because Esav's coming to kill you. We see that he gets married to his two sisters, the two sisters, Rachel and Leah, and then after some time he leaves Lavan, and now we're coming to Yaakov being ready to encounter Esav, and he gets the message that Esav is basically still furious about this, and so Yaakov goes and prays, and he decides to send messengers with gifts to Esav to try to cool down his anger and make peace. And we see in Bereshit 32, verse 14, it says, he spent the night there and then took from that which he had come into his hand a tribute to Esav his brother. And so we see that he brings goats and livestock, and gives the list of the animals. And when it comes to verse 19, it says, you shall say, your servants le'avadecha le'Yaakov, your servants Yaakov's is a tribute sent to my lord, to Esav, and behold, he too is behind us. And so I was reading in the Shnei Lachot Habrit, he comments on the gifts that Yaakov prepares for Esav, and he says, Le'avadecha le'Yaakov, they belong to your servant, to Yaakov. The word le'Yaakov was the reply intended for the terrestrial Esav. The word la'avadecha was the answer intended to Samael's inquiry, for whom the gift was intended. Who is Samael? Samael is another name for the Satan. Esav, the sages say that there's an angel over Esav. It's basically the angel of Esav, which is really Satan. And this is the whole secret of the scapegoat that is dispatched to the desert and has its neck broken on the Day of Atonement. And he goes on further. I'm not going to read through all of this, but he explains that we have to understand what happened with this encounter. Such happenings are symbolic. What happened to Yaakov's descendants later? Yaakov was able to marshal both prayer and gifts as a defense against his accusers. And we are his descendants, bereft of the temple. We can only offer prayer. So we only offer prayer now because we can't give no more korban offerings because the temple is destroyed. And so here prayer symbolizes Yaakov in exile, whereas bringing the gifts symbolizes Yaakov after the rebuilding of the temple. And the Torah writes, he took from what come into his hand a gift for Esav, Bereshit 32:14. This corresponds symbolically to the sins with which the Jews had dirtied themselves throughout the year, and which were now presented as a gift to her cousin Esav, as will be explained. And again, he goes through a lot of material here, but I just highlighted the main points here. And it says, we treat Samael as if he were still a son eating at his father's God's table. We present 2 he-goats on the Day of Atonement. Samael does not realize this very gift serves to remove him from the sanctuary of the holy region. Samael's experience may be compared to that of Haman, whom Esther invited to share a meal she tended for the king. Haman believed that he received a great distinction, little realizing that he was set up for a fall. So Esther has this big feast with Ashkaveris and invites Haman, and he thinks this is all for his acknowledgement that now he's finally getting the respect he deserves and he can go on to attack the Jewish people. But really, this was all a plan to set up his fall and have him the table turned on him. So not good for him, even though Haman is full of joy, thinking it's all about him. And our gift to Samael on the Day of Atonement is designed to produce a similar effect on him. Just as Haman left the meal with Esther and the king on the first occasion full of joy and a self-esteem, so Samael reacts to our gift as if we acknowledged his authority and we need to placate him. As a result, he does not feel that he could present accusations against the people who had shown him so much honor. And this is also, you can find in Esther 5:9. God accepts Samael's testimony concerning the overall conduct of the Jewish people and immediately grants them atonement. So basically, when the Azazel, the goat, one of the goats gets offered in the Mishkan on the Mizbeach, the other is sent in the wilderness to die. And then even the Ramban quotes that the nations say, what is Israel doing offering a korban to go out into the wilderness? And it appears as if they're offering to demons. But this is only the appearance. See, most of the korbanot are offered in the Beis HaMikdash or in the Mishkan and never outside. Only the he-goat on Yom Kippur and the red heifer. And so the he-goat looks like as if Israel is offering an offering to Satan. So he's happy, he's enjoying. He's saying, look, they're giving me respect I deserve. And the Ramban actually quotes on this and how to understand this. It says, now the intention regarding the he-goat that is sent to Azazel is not that it's an offering from us to Samael, chas v'shalom. Rather, our intention should be to fulfill the will of our Creator who commanded us to do so. The parable to shed light on this matter would be like that one who makes a feast for the king. And the king commanded the man making the feast, give a portion to my servant so-and-so. In such a case, it's clear that the person making the feast is not giving anything of his own to that servant, nor is he dealing with him for the sake of enhancing his honor. Rather, it is considered that the host of the feast is giving everything to the king, and the king is giving a gift to his servant. And this is the one person making the feast is simply observing a commandment of the king, and out of respect for the king, he does all that he's commanded. And however, the king, out of consideration for the host of the feast, wished that all the king's servants benefit from the feast, so that they should speak in praise of the host and not in disparagement. So here the Satan is getting fooled, and it's interesting, this allegorical, mystical explanation that all of Yaakov's gifts are really going upon Esau's head. And what's interesting, well, what does that mean? Is Esau like taking on Israel's sins? Well, it's interesting because we see also that Israel or Yaakov fights this angel in this parsha. And the angel, a lot of Christians teach that this is Messiah that he's wrestling with, but the sages say this is the guardian of Esau and none other than Satan himself. And some people would be shocked to hear this and be like, what is this guy talking about? This is crazy. But we see that in chapter 32, verse 29, the angel says, he said, no longer will it be said that your name is Yaakov, but Israel, for you have striven with the divine and with man and have overcome. And you see, why does the angel say no longer is your name Yaakov, but Israel? Because we see that Yaakov's name is still Yaakov. Even in 35, verse 1, God said to Yaakov. And if you go to verse 10, and then we find that God said to him, your name is Yaakov. Your name shall not always be called Yaakov. Your name, but Israel shall be your name. So why is, if this is God or a good angel, why is God repeating the same message again, except it's a little bit different? See, back in 32, the angel says, your name is not Yaakov. And what's interesting is Yaakov is sometimes spelt with a vav and sometimes missing a vav. That's a whole other lesson that would take me an hour to explain what's going on there. But basically, Yaakov is the gematria 188 with the vav, and Israel is the gematria 541, which equals 729. Okay, big deal. What does that mean? Well, in the Siddur, even in the prayers, an old prayer was orchestrated in the Siddur, and it's called Ana B'Koach, and it's a mystical prayer that there's a lot of things going on in this prayer, but it says, Ana Bakoach, we beg you with strength, Kedula Yamincha, the greatness of your right hand, Tatir Zurah, untie the the bundled sins. And then it says, Kabel Rina Amchasak Venu Torenu Nora, accept the prayer of your people, strengthen us, purify us, O awesome one. And the first letters of these words is Kuf Resh Ein, which spells Kara, which means to rip away or tear away. And then you have the Sin, Tet, and Nun, which spells Satan, to rip away the Satan, which is actually same gematria is 729, Yaakov and Israel. So what was the angel really trying to do? He was trying to remove Yaakov so that he would not be able to rip away the Satan. And this is the battle. And also we see the Satan injures the hip of Yaakov, and he remains injured. An angel or Shem does not injure and permanently or damage those he loves. And this is also an area of the meat that we don't eat. It's considered unkosher, and there's so much more to this. But I thought that was pretty mind-blowing learning about this. And we see that even when we separate the challah, the way we tear apart one part of the challah as we prepare for Shabbat, and we burn up a small piece, and this is as if we are removing the leaven, removing the Satan, and appeasing him. He thinks that this portion is going to him, but it's really just removing the bad and putting it on his head. And also, so Esau, we see at the end that what does it mean that the sins go upon Esau's head? Well, literally, we see in this Parsha that even Esau invites Yaakov. He says, "Why don't you come up with me to Seir?" And Yaakov says, "I will make my way at a slow pace, according to the drove before me and the gate of the children, until I come to my Lord at Seir." So basically, Yaakov is telling Esau, you go on ahead and I'll meet you later on. And when it says until I come, it says Avo el Adoni Seira in the verse. This is in chapter 33, verse 13 and 14. And these last letters of until I come, Avo el Adoni Seira, until I come to my Lord at Seir, is Elohei. It's missing the Vav, which is Eliyahu's name. And the Vav, again, I said that there's another code. This is a whole other lesson, a code with Yaakov's name missing the Vav. Sometimes it's with the Vav, sometimes it's without the Vav. Same with Eliyahu. And basically, what it means until they come later, the sages explain that Yaakov was alluding to the end of days when Ovadiah 121 prophesied that Yaakov's descendants will come to Mount Seir to render judgment against Esau's descendants. So we see when Mashiach comes back, Rome will be destroyed. Rome is really the evil, the Sitra Achra, and this is really against the Jewish people, and even Christianity is alluded to all of this. But this is what it means when Yaakov says, I will meet you later, that in the end, that Esau will be destroyed, and the Yetzer Hara will be completely slaughtered. It says the Mashiach will slaughter the Yetzer Hara and will be no more. So I just wanted to share that, just kind of spur of the moment study here, but hopefully you guys liked it, and may you all have a good week. Shavua Tov.